I called my parents to say my husband had died in a fire accident and my daughter was in the ICU. But it's your stepsister's birthday, so make sure you get her there on time, they said. I quietly cut them off. A week later, they showed up demanding 70% of the settlement. Click. The sound of my phone hitting the hospital floor echoed through the sterile hallway like a gunshot. I stared at the cracked screen, my hands trembling as the reality of what just happened sank in. The fluorescent lights above buzzed incessantly, casting harsh shadows across my face as I tried to process my parents' words. Beep. 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 The steady rhythm of my daughter Emma's heart monitor had become the soundtrack to my nightmare. For 3 days, I'd sat beside her bed in the pediatric ICU, watching her small chest rise and fall beneath a tangle of wires and tubes. Her face, usually bright with a kind of mischief only a 7-year-old could manage, was pale and still against the stark white pillows. The fire had taken everything. My husband David. Our home. Nearly my daughter. And when I finally worked up the courage to call the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, they couldn't spare 5 minutes of concern because it might interfere with my stepsister Madison's 25th birthday celebration. Whoosh. The automatic doors of the ICU swished open as Dr. Martinez approached, her expression carefully neutral. Mrs. Thompson? I have some updates on Emma's condition. I scrambled to pick up my broken phone, my heart racing. Is she? She's stable. The smoke inhalation caused significant lung irritation, but she's responding well to treatment. We're cautiously optimistic. Dr. Martinez's voice carried the practiced calm of someone who delivered life-altering news daily. However, she'll need extensive physical therapy for the burns on her legs, and there may be some psychological trauma to address when she's fully conscious. Thud. My legs gave out, and I sank into the uncomfortable plastic chair beside Emma's bed. Relief and exhaustion crashed over me in waves. She was going to live. My baby girl was going to live. There's something else, Dr. Martinez continued, her clipboard rustling as she flipped through pages. The fire marshal wants to speak with you about the preliminary investigation results. It appears the fire started due to faulty wiring in your neighbor's unit, then spread to your townhouse. You may want to contact a lawyer. Buzz. My broken phone vibrated against the floor. Through the spider web of cracks across the screen, I could make out a text from my mother, "Hope everything works out." Madison's party was beautiful. She got the diamond necklace she wanted. XOXO. I turned the phone face down and focused on Emma's peaceful face. For the first time in years, my priorities were crystal clear. 1 week later, ding-dong. The doorbell of my sister-in-law Rebecca's house chimed just as I was helping Emma with her morning medications. We'd been staying in her guest room since the hospital discharge, and the normalcy of a functioning household felt both comforting and foreign. "I'll get it," Rebecca called from the kitchen. "Sarah, are you expecting someone?" Creak. The front door opened, followed by voices I recognized all too well. My stomach dropped as my mother's artificially cheerful tone drifted down the hallway. "Hello, dear. We're here to see Sarah. Is she available?" Emma looked up at me with wide eyes. She'd been unusually quiet since the accident, speaking only in whispers when she spoke at all. "Mama, who is that?" Footsteps. Heavy, purposeful steps echoed on Rebecca's hardwood floors. I heard Rebecca's confused voice explaining that we were still recovering, followed by my father's gruff response that this couldn't wait. They appeared in the doorway like storm clouds, my mother clutching her designer purse and my father checking his expensive watch. Neither of them looked at Emma, who instinctively moved closer to me on the couch. "Sarah, sweetheart," my mother began, her voice tripping with false concern. "We came as soon as we could arrange time away from work. How are you holding up?" Silence. The room fell quiet except for the gentle hum of Emma's nebulizer in the background. I studied their faces, looking for any genuine emotion, any real worry about their granddaughter who'd nearly died. Instead, I saw the same calculating expressions they'd worn my entire childhood when they wanted something. "We're managing," I said carefully. "Emma's doing better each day." My father cleared his throat. "That's wonderful news. Rebecca mentioned there might be some legal proceedings regarding the fire?" There it is. The real reason for their visit crystallized in that moment. Not concern for Emma. Not grief over David's death. Not guilt over their response to my desperate phone call. Money. "The investigation is ongoing," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "The initial findings suggest negligence by the property management company and the contractor who did the electrical work in the neighboring unit." My mother's eyes lit up with an emotion I'd seen countless times before. Greed. Oh my. That sounds like it could be quite serious from a legal standpoint. Emma tugged on my sleeve. "Mama, I'm tired." "Of course, baby. I helped her settle back against the couch pillows, acutely aware of my parents' impatience shifting behind me. Papers rustling. My father was pulling documents from his briefcase. Sarah, we need to discuss something important. Your mother and I have been consulting with our attorney. Your attorney? Rebecca appeared in the doorway, concern etched across her features. Now, don't get upset, my mother said, moving to sit across from us without invitation. We're family, and family looks out for each other. We want to make sure Sarah makes the right decisions during this difficult time. Thump. My father set his briefcase down hard on Rebecca's coffee table. The thing is, sweetheart, wrongful death settlements can be quite substantial. And Emma's medical bills, future care costs, therapy, it's going to be expensive. We're prepared to help, my mother added quickly. But we think it would be wise for us to be more involved in managing any settlement money. For Emma's future, of course. Tick. 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 The antique clock on Rebecca's mantel seemed impossibly loud as I processed what they were really saying. They wanted control of any money that came from David's death and Emma's suffering. What exactly are you proposing? I asked, though I already knew I wouldn't like the answer. My father spread the papers across the table. A simple family agreement. We would help oversee any settlement funds, taking a reasonable fee for our financial management services. Say, 70% of any award. Crash. Rebecca's coffee mug hit the floor in the kitchen, the sound of shattering ceramic punctuating the audacity of their request. 70%? I kept my voice low, mindful of Emma dozing beside me. You want 70% of the settlement from my husband's death? Now, don't be dramatic, my mother waved her hand dismissively. You've never been good with money, Sarah. Remember how you nearly defaulted on that credit card in college? We're trying to protect Emma's future. Memories flooding back. The credit card she was referring to, the one they'd insisted I get to pay for textbooks they promised to help with, then left me to handle alone when Madison needed a car. The graduation they missed because it conflicted with Madison's high school boyfriend drama. The wedding where they spent the entire reception complaining about the venue I'd chosen after they withdrew their promised contribution at the last minute. Let me understand this correctly, I said slowly, standing up from the couch. When I called you from the hospital to tell you that David was dead and Emma was fighting for her life, your response was to remind me about Madison's birthday party. My mother's face flushed. That's not fair, Sarah. You caught us at a bad time. A bad time? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. My daughter was unconscious, hooked up to machines, and you were worried about birthday party timing. Squeak. Emma's small voice interrupted the tension. Mama? Are you okay? I immediately softened, kneeling beside the couch to stroke her hair. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just talking with Grandma and Grandpa. She looked past me to study their faces with the brutal honesty of childhood. They don't look very sad about Daddy. Pin dropped silence. The truth of her observation hung in the air like smoke. Even a 7-year-old could see what I'd spent 30 years trying to ignore. My father shuffled his papers impatiently. Sarah, we don't have all day. Are you going to sign this agreement or not? Deep breath. I stood up slowly, my decision crystallizing with each passing second. No. No? My mother's voice pitched higher. Sarah, be reasonable. You're clearly not thinking straight after everything that's happened. You're right, I nodded. I haven't been thinking straight. I've been thinking like a daughter who desperately wanted her parents' love and support. But I'm done with that now. Footsteps. I walked to the front door and opened it wide. The afternoon sunlight streamed in, bright and warm against my face. I'd like you to leave. My father's face turned red. You're making a huge mistake, Sarah. You have no idea how to handle this kind of money. Maybe not, I agreed. But I know how to handle family who only shows up when there's something in it for them. Car doors slamming. They left in a huff of indignation and threats about lawyers, their expensive car disappearing down Rebecca's tree-lined street. I closed the door and leaned against it, feeling lighter than I had in years. Good riddance, Rebecca said from behind me, already cleaning up the broken mug. I never liked them anyway. 3 months later, knock, knock. The gentle rap on my new apartment door made me smile. I knew that pattern, 2 quick knocks, pause, 2 more. Emma had invented it during our first week in our new place, declaring it our secret family code. Come in, you goose, I called out, laughing as she burst through the door with Rebecca close behind. Mama. Look what Aunt Rebecca got me. Emma held up a new coloring book, her enthusiasm a stark contrast to the quiet, withdrawn child she'd been in the hospital. The physical therapy was working wonders, and more importantly, the counseling sessions were helping her process the trauma. Rustling papers. Rebecca set a stack of mail on my kitchen counter. These came to the house for you. Looks official. I recognized the law firm's letterhead immediately. My attorney, Janet Morrison, had been handling the case with a combination of professional competence and genuine compassion that still surprised me. Tearing envelope. Settlement conference scheduled for next week, I read aloud. Preliminary negotiations suggest a favorable outcome. That's wonderful, Rebecca said, settling onto my couch. Any regrets about not involving your parents? Considering. I thought about the question seriously. In the months since I'd cut contact, they'd tried various approaches. Guilt trips through other family members. Threats about legal action. Even a few attempts at manipulation through Christmas cards addressed to Emma. None whatsoever, I said finally. Emma and I are building something new here. Something honest. Phone buzzing. My cell phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. The message made my blood run cold. We know about the settlement conference. This isn't over. Mom. Emma looked up from her coloring book. Mama? You look scared. Just surprised, baby. Nothing to worry about. But I was worried. I knew my parents well enough to recognize this wasn't an empty threat. Settlement day. Elevator ding. The law office building's elevator announced our arrival at the 15th floor with mechanical precision. Janet Morrison met us in the lobby, her professional demeanor radiating confidence. Are you ready for this, Sarah? She asked as we walked toward the conference room. As ready as I'll ever be. Heavy doors opening. The conference room was intimidatingly formal, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city and a massive mahogany table surrounded by leather chairs. Representatives from the property management company, their insurance carrier, and the electrical contractor sat on one side, each flanked by their own legal teams. Papers shuffling. Janet laid out our documentation methodically. Medical records detailing Emma's injuries and ongoing treatment needs. Financial projections for her future care. David's employment records and potential lifetime earnings. The fire marshal's final report definitively establishing negligence. Before we begin, the lead defense attorney announced, we need to address a procedural concern. We've received communication from individuals claiming to represent Mrs. Thompson's interests. My stomach dropped. They didn't. Door opening. My parents walked into the conference room like they owned the place, my father carrying his briefcase and my mother wearing what I recognized as her important business meeting outfit. Sorry we're late, my father announced to the room. Traffic was terrible. Janet looked at me with raised eyebrows. I shook my head slightly, and understanding flashed across her features. Excuse me, Janet addressed my parents politely but firmly. This is a private settlement conference. You weren't invited. My mother laughed, the sound grating against the formal atmosphere. Oh, there must be some confusion. We're Sarah's parents. We're here to help her make the right decisions. Tension escalating. The defense attorneys exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the unexpected drama. The lead counsel cleared his throat. Perhaps we should postpone. No, I said firmly, standing up. We're not postponing. And these people are not part of this proceeding. My father's face darkened. Sarah, don't be foolish. You're about to make decisions that will affect Emma's entire future. You're right, I agreed. I am. And that's exactly why you can't be here. Memory flash. Suddenly I was 8 years old again, standing in our kitchen while they discussed my college fund with Madison's mother. She's getting older, my stepmother had said. College is expensive. Maybe we should reallocate some of Sarah's money for Madison's dance classes. I remembered the crushing realization that my future was being traded away for my stepsister's hobbies. The pattern had continued for decades, but it was ending today. Security, Janet spoke into her phone. We need assistance in conference room A. Footsteps approaching. 2 security guards appeared in the doorway within minutes. My parents' confident expressions faltered as the reality of the situation became clear. Ma'am? One of the guards addressed my mother respectfully. You'll need to come with us. This is ridiculous, my father blustered. We're family. We have a right. Actually, you don't, Janet interrupted smoothly. Mrs. Thompson is the sole beneficiary and decision-maker regarding this settlement. Your presence is neither requested nor required. Door closing. They were escorted out with minimal fuss, though I could hear my mother's raised voice echoing down the hallway until the elevator doors closed behind them. I apologize for the disruption, I said to the room, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. The lead defense attorney actually smiled. Family dynamics can be complicated, Mrs. Thompson. Shall we proceed? 2 hours later, pen clicking. Janet's pen made a satisfied clicking sound as she finished signing the final settlement documents. The amount was more than I'd ever imagined, enough to secure Emma's future, pay for the best possible medical care, and allow us to build the kind of life David would have wanted for us. Congratulations, Sarah, Janet said, shaking my hand. This will make a tremendous difference for Emma's future. Phone buzzing frantically. As we left the building, my phone began vibrating with increasingly frantic messages from my parents. They'd apparently been waiting in the lobby downstairs, hoping to intercept us. We know you signed something. We deserve to know what's happening. This is exactly the kind of mistake we were trying to prevent. Your father is contacting his lawyer. You can't cut us out like this. Delete, delete, delete. I cleared the messages without reading them all and turned off my phone entirely. 6 months later, doorbell ringing. The doorbell of our new house, actually new, with proper wiring and smoke detectors in every room, chimed with a melody Emma had chosen herself. She ran to answer it with the confidence of a child who felt safe in her own home again. Mama. It's Aunt Rebecca. Happy chatter. Rebecca came bearing her usual gifts of homemade cookies and the latest gossip from David's family. They'd embraced Emma and me completely, filling some of the holes my parents' absence had left. I have news, Rebecca announced, settling into our comfortable living room. I ran into your cousin Mark at the grocery store yesterday. Pause. I waited, knowing from her expression that this wasn't going to be pleasant news. Your parents hired a lawyer. They're claiming grandparental rights and demanding information about Emma's finances. Sigh. I'd been expecting this eventually. Janet said they might try something like that. We're prepared. Emma looked up from where she was playing with her new therapy dog, a golden retriever puppy named Hope. Are Grandma and Grandpa trying to take our house? No, sweetheart. No one can take our house. It belongs to us. Phone ringing. Janet's number appeared on my caller ID. I answered immediately, knowing she'd only call after hours if it was important. Sarah, I have updates on the legal action your parents filed. Do you have a few minutes? Of course. Pages turning. I could hear Janet flipping through documents as she spoke. Their case is extremely weak. They're claiming financial incompetence and requesting guardianship over Emma's settlement funds, but they have no legal standing. Grandparental rights don't extend to financial control, especially when the custodial parent is competent and the grandparents have had minimal involvement in the child's life. What happens next? We respond formally, provide documentation of their abandonment during your crisis, and request dismissal. I don't anticipate this going to trial. Relief. The tension I'd been carrying in my shoulders finally began to ease. Thank you, Janet. For everything. You've built a good life for Emma, Sarah. Don't let them undermine that. 1 year later, birthday song. Emma's 8th birthday party filled our backyard with the sound of children's laughter and slightly off-key singing. Rebecca, David's parents, and several of Emma's new friends from school gathered around our picnic table, watching her blow out candles on a homemade chocolate cake. Phone buzzing. A text notification appeared on my phone. For a moment, my heart skipped, thinking it might be another harassment attempt from my parents. Instead, it was from my cousin Mark. Saw the dismissal notice in the legal section of the newspaper. Congratulations. You did the right thing. Deep breath. The court had officially dismissed my parents' case 3 months ago, citing lack of standing and frivolous claims. They'd been ordered to pay court costs and attorney fees, a final insult that seemed to have finally convinced them to accept defeat. Mama, come see. Emma called from across the yard, where she was showing her friends the treehouse David's father had built for her. Grandpa Jim put a rope swing on it. Joy spreading. David's parents had stepped into the grandparent role naturally, loving Emma without condition or agenda. They asked nothing from us except the joy of watching her grow up happy and healthy. Mom. Emma ran back to me, slightly breathless from playing. Can we call Daddy tonight? We developed a ritual of talking to David's picture every night before bed, telling him about our day and how much we missed him. It helped Emma process her grief while keeping his memory alive. Of course, baby. Camera clicking. Rebecca was taking pictures of everything, documenting Emma's first truly carefree birthday since the fire. The physical scars on her legs were fading, and the emotional healing had progressed remarkably well with consistent therapy and the security of knowing she was truly safe. 2 years later, graduation applause. Emma's elementary school graduation ceremony filled the auditorium with proud parents and excited children. She walked across the stage with confidence, her smile bright enough to light up the entire room. That's our girl, David's mother whispered beside me, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Memory lane. I thought about how different this moment could have been. If I'd signed my parents' agreement, Emma and I would probably still be trapped in their web of manipulation and control. Instead, she was thriving in ways I'd never imagined possible. The settlement money had been invested wisely, ensuring Emma's future education and ongoing medical needs would be covered. We'd also established a small scholarship fund in David's name for children affected by house fires, a legacy he would have approved of. Phone silent. My parents had been silent for over a year now. No more lawyers, no more threats, no more guilt trips through family members. Sometimes I wondered if they ever thought about Emma, if they regretted choosing Madison's birthday party over their granddaughter's life. But mostly, I was grateful for the peace their absence had brought. New beginning. As we walked out of the graduation ceremony, Emma skipped ahead before turning back to me with a serious expression she wore when asking important questions. "Mama, do you think Daddy would be proud of us?" "Certainly." I knelt down to her level, looking into eyes that held David's warmth and determination. "I know he would be, sweetheart. We kept our promises to him." "What promises?" "To take care of each other. To be brave. And to build something beautiful from the ashes." New chapter. Emma nodded solemnly, then broke into a grin. "Can we get ice cream to celebrate?" "Absolutely." As we drove toward our favorite ice cream shop, I caught Emma's reflection in the rearview mirror. She was humming quietly, a sure sign she was happy and content. The girl who'd once whispered in hospital corridors now sang at the top of her lungs, confident in her place in the world. Full circle. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca, "Proud of you both. David would be too." I smiled, thinking about the journey that had brought us here. From that devastating phone call in the hospital hallway to this moment of pure joy, we'd learned that family isn't defined by blood or obligation. It's defined by love, support, and showing up when it matters most. The end. Some revenge stories end with elaborate schemes and dramatic confrontations. Mine ended with something far more powerful, the quiet satisfaction of choosing love over manipulation, boundaries over guilt, and Emma's future over my parents' greed. In cutting them off, I hadn't just protected a settlement, I'd protected my daughter's childhood, her security, and her right to be loved unconditionally. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply living well without the people who try to hold you back. Sound of happiness? Emma's laughter filled the car as we pulled into the parking lot, the sound of a child who knew she was safe, loved, and free to be herself. That sound was worth more than any settlement, and protecting it had been the easiest decision I'd ever made.